We're going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Brooke, and I work with Nebraska agriculture in the classroom. And I recognize several of you guys that I visited in your classrooms this fall or this spring as well. So I'm really excited to have you on this virtual field trip. We have Farmer Mitch with us today. He is a farmer outside of Aurora, Nebraska, which is kind of in central Nebraska. And he is next to a cornfield today. Corn is really important to us in Nebraska. In fact, it's so important that we even call ourselves the Corn Huskers, right, after our football team. Every year in Nebraska, we raise over 1 billion acres of corn, and we're number 3 in the United States in corn production. So corn is a huge part of Nebraska's agriculture. I want you to raise your hand if you think agriculture is important to us in our daily lives. It definitely is. It impacts our everyday lives, from the food that we eat or to the cars that we drive. Ethanol is a byproduct from corn, and so it provides for us every day. These products from corn that we get can even be used to help us make some of our toothpaste, our fireworks, some of our makeup, and a lot of other things that we call byproducts. So we get things like corn starch and corn we can get syrup, corn, corn starch, corn oil, and corn syrup are the main ingredients from byproducts that come from this corn. So we use a lot of the corn that we grow in Nebraska to fuel our vehicles and to feed our livestock animals like our cattle, our pigs, and our chickens. And we're going to learn a little bit about what Farmer Mitch grows his corn for here in Nebraska, because it can have several different types of uses. So today we are with Farmer Mitch. Mitch, we said you live on a farm near Aurora, Nebraska with your family. How many years have you been farming and planting corn?
Hi, Brooke. Thanks for the question. So I've been a part of our family farm. I'm 27 now. I am on my second year farming a bunch of my own ground this year. I've been a part of our operation since I've been obviously little. I've been helping drive tractors and do field work and stuff like that since I've been about 10 or 11. So going on my 17th year.
Awesome. Yeah. How long you said you've been a part of your family's farm for about 17 years. How long has your family been farming here in Nebraska?
I am the 6th generation family farm. My family settled here with the Homestead Act back in the 1800s. So the ground the field that I'm actually standing on was the very first farm that we settled on. So it's been around for well over 100 years now.
Wow, that's really awesome. What kind of crops do you grow? I know you grow corn, but do you grow any other plants on your farm?
Yep. We do grow some soybeans, as well as some commercial seed corn for some seed corn companies.
Okay, very cool. Do you raise any?
We also do grow some milo, grain sorghum. Depends on the year. This year we're going to have probably a quarter of grain sorghum as well.
Very nice. Do you raise any farm animals on your farm?
We don't. My wife is slowly getting me into some hobby livestock. We do have some chickens on me and my wife's farm, but big animals like cows and horses we do not.
Very nice. I know your wife raises eggs, and does she sell those eggs to a local people in your community?
Yep.
Yeah, very nice. Does your family, when you are planting your corn in your field, do you have to hire people to help you, or is it more of a family operation?
So this year, actually, it's always been just a family operation. We have had some people we hire in the past just to help us, depending on if me and my brother are around. Like when I was in college, we had a guy that we hired to help us. But now that it's just me and my dad, my mom, my wife, and my brother all help us move equipment around and get stuff where it needs to go. So Right now it's just our family.
Very nice. So Farmer Mitch and his family have been farming for quite a while. So you could say he has a lot of farm experience, along with his family being able to kind of show him the ropes on the farm so he can be able to plant and start his own farming operation as well. So Mitch today is going to share with us about corn planting, because in the season of spring, that's when a lot of our farmers begin to plant their crops. So when farmers plant their corn, they measure their plants in their fields in acres. So 1 acre is about the size of a football field. And we said farmers across Nebraska plant over 1 billion acres of corn each year. So that's over about 1 billion football fields. How many acres on average are you going to plant on your own this year?
This year for corn acres, I'm going to have about 625 acres of corn on mine. As far as my dad goes, he'll have about the same. So we'll have right at about that 1,200 corn acres this year.
Very nice. So the planting process for farmers, they can't just take off in the field and start planting, right? Do you have to do any prep work in order to get out in the fields before spring planting takes place?
Yes, we're actually trying to finish up some fertilizing for the year. Fertilizing, what we do is we have a special machine that will put the fertilizer right where we're going to be planting in a row, as well as till up a little bit of soil so we're able to plant in garden-like conditions.
Very nice. Did you say in the past, so I know you kind of have a process. Where you live, you have different types of strip tilling and ridge tilling. Could you explain a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do a little bit of both, actually. So strip tilling it's a very specialized machine that will till up about 8 inches wide all the way through the field in rows. And what that does is it just makes it like a garden for us to go through and plant into. Makes the soil really, really mellow, as well as that's where we put our fertilizer for the year, corn food. And then the other one we do is ridge till, where we have another specialized machine that makes little berms around the corn plant, and that is for we're able to when we irrigate, we have some gravity fed pipe that we use, and it's able to get water in the field, as well as we use it for just for rows for eradicating weeds, stuff like that.
Wow, okay, so there's a lot of education and kind of knowledge that goes into having to prepare your fields for planting so you know the best applications to use. So a lot of that preparation happens before you can even get close to a tractor in the springtime. So I've learned from Mitch that farmers are environmentalists and stewards of their land. Environmentalists are similar because they have to be able to care for the land. So farmers who plant corn in the spring, they have to make sure that the ground of the temperature of the ground is at least 50 degrees. Is that right, Mitch?
Yes, absolutely.
And so after the ground has warmed up and it's ready to be planted, Mitch has to check the equipment to make sure it's ready to be operated. And then, I don't know, Mitch, do you have the tractor behind you in the planter?
Yep, absolutely I do.
Do you want to show us a little bit about the different parts of the planter and kind of walk us through what the different parts are? I know, unfortunately, the weather is not in our favor today. It rained a little bit in your area of Nebraska, and so I heard the fields were a little wet to get out there and start planting today.
Yep, we had about a half-inch rain, which during this time of year is it slows us down, but it's very hard to complain about it because it's really good for the crops. So here's our planter. Here's one of them. This will be hopefully in the field tomorrow. 16-row equipment is what we run here. We're a big red family, as you can tell. So on each row unit, there are different parts of it. So these set of blades here, what they do is they move away any residue that's sitting on the field. It cleans off the row, so we're able to plant through it. underneath these black wheels right here, there are a thing called V-blades. And what they do is they open up the ground, and I've got a row unit apart here. There's a thing called a seed tube that sits right here where the seed will fall down from the box into the soil. And then as the planter goes through, these little discs right here will close up the seed trench, and this will just pack the trench down so it's nice and firm. So these boxes will hold about a bushel of corn. This will feed down through this big opening in here, and they'll go through. This is called a seed plate, and all these little holes on here. There's a vacuum that will run, and the vacuum will suction seed onto this seed plate. And as it sits in this housing here, it'll spin around, and as it gets to this opening, right up here, the seed will fall down in through here and into the ground. So it's a pretty interesting process. There's a lot of moving parts on these planters, so it's always kind of a game to see if we can keep it running for an entire day without something little causing us some problems.
Do you have to do a lot of maintenance on your planter in order to make sure that everything's working correctly each year? Or say if something breaks, are you I guess trained to know how to fix those problems?
Yes, me and my dad, we go through all of our equipment. We're kind of our own mechanics, I guess you could say. But if anything was to happen on this, that's kind of one of the jobs that you're sitting in the seat of the tractor. You're listening, you're watching, just making sure that everything looks like it's running correctly. And if we do happen to, if you hear a weird noise, or if you see something not working correctly, get out, diagnose the problem, and get it fixed as soon as you can.
Yeah. So if we think about Mitch's planter, you said your planter was it 16 rows?
Yep.
So if we think about in the early 1900s when Mitch's family first started farming, how many rows did your grandfather have? Do you remember?
Yep. So my grandpa, when he started farming, he was born in 1932, I believe. And when he started farming, he was using 4-row equipment. And as he got older, when he was finished farming in the 90s, we were up to 10-row equipment. So he saw quite the transition, and now he gets to watch us use 16-row equipment. So we're over 4 times as big as what he was when he started planting.
And I'm sure you're able to do it now with the new technology advancements. You're able to do it in a more efficient way to save some time, where it would have taken your grandfather several days and weeks to plant all of his fields from back then. So that's really cool. As we are talking about this planter, do we have any classrooms that have any questions for Mitch as we are kind of thinking about what's all going on here? Let's see here. I see if you have a question, if you want to send your class or your student up to the camera, then I can see your classroom a little bit better to call on you. Let's see here. Do I have a question in Mrs. Anderson's classroom?
How many gallons of gas does the planter need to run?
Oh, how many gallons of
gas
do you need for
the tractor? Yep. The tractor will take 160 gallons of diesel fuel to be able to run.
Diesel fuel is what we burn in those big tractors. And sometimes, I don't know if Mitch's tractor uses biodiesel, but biodiesel is also used in big like semi trucks and other buses, and that comes from a plant called a soybean. So biodiesel is a fuel as well. We make ethanol from our corn that we can grow on our farms, which is a gasoline we can burn in our cars. All right, I see a question in Mrs. Sherry's classroom. If you want to go ahead and unmute your microphone, that way we can hear you. There we go.
You just drive the tractor to a gas station?
Ooh.
No, we do not. We actually have special fuel tanks on our farm. We've got a little over 6,000 gallons we can hold here at one time. We've got numerous tractors, combines, stuff like that will take a lot of fuel. So we actually will have a fuel truck from a local co-op that will come out, and he will fill up all of our fuel barrels. So we're able to just go and just fill up here on the farm.
Thank you. Mrs. Shriek's class.
How many tubs of corn do you go by every tractor run?
Can you repeat it one more time? I don't know if I caught it quite.
How many times do you use the tractor in a month?
Ooh.
In a month. Oh, wow. It depends on the time of year. So during the springtime, when we're getting ready to plant and doing field work, we will use it probably every day of the month for April and May. And then when it comes time for summer, we'll use it in the summertime, probably 15 or 20 days of the summer to fertilize our corn. And then come harvest time in the fall, or the end of September, all of October, and the start of November, we use our tractors every day until our crop is out in the field.
Mitch, I have a follow-up question for that. How long, you said you have several hundred acres of corn to plant. How long is that going to take you once you get started planting, typically?
So with each planter, we figure we can cover, on a good day, we can cover about 180 to 200 acres per day. We travel at 5 miles per hour, so you're going a little bit slower, but assuming that everything goes well, we're able to cover that many acres a day.
That's a lot of football fields. So he can cover a couple hundred football fields almost a day. Let's see here. Miss Garcia's class, do you have a question for us?
How long does it usually take to plant all the seeds?
A few weeks, right, Mitch? Is that what you said?
Yes. Yep. Well, so we it'll depend on the crop usually for a year. So like this year we purchased the second planter. So me and my dad are able to both plant this year. And when we get started, if the weather cooperates, if our equipment cooperates, and if we don't have any breakdowns, we'll be able to plant all our acres in 8 to 10 days.
Wow. Awesome. Thank you.
Let's see here. We have a hand in Mrs. Mulder's class.
The machine's dangerous.
Pull your mask down.
Are the machines dangerous sometimes?
Yes, we have to be very careful around our equipment. There's a lot, like I said, a lot of moving parts, which means that there's a lot of places you can get your hand caught. You can get cut open really good, or you could get severely injured with really any piece of equipment we have on our farm. So we all have to be very careful. We have to make sure we know where everybody's at all times, and we have to be very vigilant out in the field.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, safety is really important when it comes to farms and those farmers working on farms. Let's see here. Let's do one in Mrs. Moore's class, and then we will take more questions here in a minute. So I see your hands up, so I'll try and get to all those teachers that have hands up today too.
Okay.
My question is, how much corn does one of the planters hold per tub?
So in our boxes, like I showed earlier, let me flip this around here quick. This right here will hold a little over, or right at about 2 bushels of corn. 2 bushels is about, 1 bushel is 56 pounds. So each box right here will hold a little bit over 100 pounds. And then we have 16 rows. So at one time when the planter is full, it'll be around that 16 to 1,700 pounds of grain in our boxes.
Wow, that's a lot of grain that you can hold in those planters each time. How often do you have to fill up? How many passes can you go before you have to fill up your planter?
If we have our planter completely full with corn, we can do about a little over 100 acres. With soybeans, we're planting at a much higher rate, so we're having to fill up about every probably 40 or 50 acres.
What do you do with the corn that you grow on your farm, Mitch? Where does that go?
So a lot of the corn this year for us, it was actually kind of split 50-50. We take a lot of it to the local ethanol plant here where it's ground up and made into ethanol for vehicles. And then we also took about 50% of our crop to a specialty place where they will take our corn and send it off to a feed mill where they will grind it up for food grade quality corn, which is where you get like your tortilla chips and all your chips and anything that has a corn byproduct. That's where we take that stuff, and that'll be put on a train and shipped all over the country to be used as food.
Very cool. Yeah, so we have several different uses for corn. The field corn, which a lot of farmers grow to feed their livestock animals. Some farmers grow seed corn so that we can sell it to those seed companies to have seeds to plant the following year. We can sell them to ethanol plants to make fuel and for food grade corn to make like our corn chips, our Fritos, our cereals that we eat. So there's a lot of different uses. Mitch, do you have to water your crops on your farm or do you rely on rainwater?
Well, rainwater is very nice to have because it's a lot cheaper than irrigation water. But yes, we do have all of our fields, as you can see behind me, do have center pivots. These are stressful to have at times, but they're necessary here for us to have. Without them, a dry year, it would severely damage our crops to not have the access to water. So, yes, we water every field that we have. We're able to water.
Awesome. Would you mind, I know we said we can't be in the fields today, but would you mind showing us a little bit about what the inside of the tractor looks like, the technology that goes into helping you plant your fields? I know technology is really important to farmers and you rely a lot on it now today using GPS and computer technology. So.
Okay. Let me pull this up real quick. So I can't, for some reason, my one monitor is not wanting to turn on very well for us here. So here's what I have to look at when I'm in the cab all day. This monitor right here is our GPS monitor, and this is what will essentially drive the tractor through the field and keep it nice and straight. This is basically just a little TV that we have. We've got cameras on our planter. So some of the moving parts we have to really keep a close eye on. And we're able to see, we have 3 different cameras on there. So we're able to see each section of the planter. And so we can make sure everything's running correctly. This monitor is my iPad. Our iPad talks with this monitor that I can't seem to turn on for some reason. But what this one does is it will map out as we plant to the field. You're able to see, let me pull up the field real quick. It's not gonna let me. But as you can tell, it will produce a map for us. And so we're able to go through in the off season or in the summer, and we're able to see what population we planted at. We're able to see what day we planted, and we're able to see the hybrid and the type of corn that we have planted. So there's a lot of different moving parts. And then this last one here is a little one. It controls our fertilizer, which is what we have in the tanks on the side of our tractor. So a lot of stuff to look at. There's always something to watch. So we're very vigilant when we're in the tractor.
Yeah, you have to. You can't just take a nap, right, while your tractor's moving.
Unfortunately, not. If you take a nap, you could get into some big trouble.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of different moving parts in that tractor that you have to consistently watch to make sure that those seeds are getting planted correctly. So
Yep.
Farmers have to be able to use science and technology and engineering and math on their farms every day. Mitch, did you go to school for farming, or what kind of degree did you get in order to come back to your family farm?
So I went to the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, and I studied a thing called agronomy, and what that degree is it is basically the study of soil and plants and how they interact with each other, and their relationship with the two. So I learned a lot that I was able to bring back to our farm. Different things that you can look at, fertilizer placement. You look at just a very broad range of things.
Very cool. Yeah. So even farmers can go to college to get knowledge and skills that will prepare them so that they can be better stewards of the land and be able to farm in the best way possible to provide us with a safe food product that we can eat and enjoy as well. So the very first thing Mitch has to do on his farm is plant the crops. And then once those plants have been planted, they begin to grow throughout the summer. What's your next step after planting? What do you kind of do, or what do you have to watch for?
So once we get done planting, the next thing that we do is we will spray for any weeds that we have coming through, and that will happen once the corn is either just ready to come out of the ground or once it's out of the ground a little ways. We'll have our local co-op here in town. They come in and they'll spray herbicide. And then once the herbicide has been sprayed, we'll wait a little bit until the corn is about 6 to 10 inches tall. And then we'll go through and we'll run our cultivator, which is one of those special machines that we have. It'll put on fertilizer, as well as it'll make that little ridge around the crop as our rows. So once that's done, then as in terms of field operations and running the tractors, we'll be done until harvest time after that.
Yeah. And then I'll just show this picture since I have it here. This is kind of what Mitch uses. So he doesn't use a tractor to harvest his corn. He uses a combine that looks similar to this. And it has a header on the front of it that will go and cut down all of the corn when it's ready to be harvested. So they look a little bit different from each other based on the planter and the tractor, but he still definitely needs his tractor on his farm to help him do some of that work, maybe pulling a grain cart or something like that. So we have a couple minutes here. We have about 5 minutes before we wrap up to take a couple more questions. So I see some hands on the screen. We will get those questions answered. So let's see here. Mrs. Holquest's classroom.
Hi, this is Nora.
Hi, Nora. You have a question for Farmer Mitch today?
A little bit.
Oh yeah. How many bushels of corn do you produce every year?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It honestly depends on the year. We have never had a year that is the same. I'll tell you that. A lot of it has to do with Mother Nature, with any type of weather that we might have come through the summer. But for instance, last year I was able to, on a couple of my farms, raise that 240 to 250 bushels per acre, which for 1/4 of ground is 155 acres. I was able to produce anywhere from 36 to 40,000 bushels on one field. So it's a pretty good number.
Yeah. And we said farmers, they grow over 1 billion acres of corn each year. And so with that technology we saw in Mitch's tractor, that they can help. So you will use that iPad again in the fall to help calculate how much you harvest. So he can then kind of look at that data from the amount of seeds he planted versus how many bushels of corn he can harvest at the end of the year. So it kind of goes hand in hand, and it's really important that he has that data and information to track that. Let's see. Who haven't I called on yet? I apologize. Miss Bauer's class. Or Bowser, sorry.
How many tractors or planters do you use when you are getting the planting done?
So typically we usually just run one tractor and one planter. But this year we purchased a second planter. So we are going to be running 2 tractors and 2 planters at one time. So I will be in one and then my dad will be in the other one.
Very good. Mrs. Jones' classroom.
All right, Soren, go ahead.
How many acres do you get in one day?
When we plant, or I guess what time of the year are you asking about?
Like in like the spring, how many acres do you get in like a day?
Get prepared, you mean?
Yeah.
How many acres can you prepare per day?
Yep. So we're able to go a little bit faster when we run these fertilizing machines in the spring. Me and my dad are able to do probably 250 acres a day when we are getting the fields ready.
Very good. Mrs. Aaron's class.
When you do you ever put the chemicals in the pivots to use that instead of just doing it by hand, or do you use pivots in other machines?
So we are not able to put chemicals through our pivots. We're able to put some basically plant food through our pivots that can run in the water. But in terms of chemicals, we have to have a sprayer come in to put those in. We are not able to put them through our pivots because those chemicals, if they get into that's our groundwater, and we can't have certain chemicals get into our groundwater. That can be really bad for people and for animals. So we have to be really careful as to what we put in our pivots. It kind of depends on what products we have to use.
Yeah, and I know most farmers want to be very conservative when they apply chemicals to their fields, like those herbicide applications, but there's a reason why farmers have to apply those kind of weeds and pesticide applications, because, correct me if I'm wrong, Mitch, those plants have to fight for that soil nutrients, and if they're competing against the weeds that are growing in their fields, they're not going to be able to have a higher yield than they normally would. And so that's kind of why farmers will use those pesticide and weed applications on their farms too. Let's see here. Mrs. Streff, sorry.
Do you use drones when you farm?
Great question. So I actually do use them on my farm. I'm kind of a technology, I don't know what the word would be, but I like to use technology a lot. And so I actually do use a drone on my farm. They are really, really useful in terms of being able to check out the crop, especially like last summer, we had a pretty bad storm come in. And so I was able to go with my drone and take pictures and videos and stuff of our crop damage. So we're able to document it for insurance purposes. But I use my drone for videos, for pictures, for all kinds of different applications. So yes, I do use one.
That's awesome. Yeah, technology is really important. Let's see here. We have time for a couple more questions. If everyone is okay with that, let's do Mrs. Gunvalson's class.
Did it unmute it? Can you hear me? Get close. Take your mask down. That's it real nice and loud.
What's your favorite part about farming?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Growing up, my favorite part about farming was just being out in the tractor with my dad and my grandpa. But now that I'm doing my own farming, it's always been my favorite thing has always been harvest time. I love to be out in the combine or the tractor out in the field, seeing how all your hard work for the summer is paying off. It's a really rewarding time, and it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of different people that are able to help us at harvest time, and so we get to see a lot of people, and we just get to be out in the field. So yeah, that's probably my favorite part.
Wonderful. All right, we're going to take one from Spring Lake in Mrs. Yang's class, and then we'll go down to Miss Spurgeon's class, and then we'll wrap up here.
My question is about the planter. From the planter, it looked like the part that packs the dirt into the ground was at the front. So I was thinking that it would pack the dirt in the first, and then how would it plant the seed?
So on the very front of the planter, those discs are at an angle. So there's two on each row, and as the planter is lowered, we set that based on how deep we want to plant the seed. So if we want to plant it a little bit deeper, we'll raise those front discs up, because all we want those front discs to do is just run right along the top of the ground and just move away any like big clods of dirt or anything that might be in the way for the seed to get into the ground.
Very good. Thanks for explaining that. All right, last question. We'll take it from Mrs. Spurgeon's class.
So how many corn do you produce per year?
So do you remember what was you said you had over 600 acres that you plant and so I don't know if you know the math on the top of your head, but
so last year I had 775 acres of corn that I planted, and I was just looking at it last night, so I know the number. I had 195,376 bushels produced.
Wow, that's a lot. I like to think of a bushel, if you have a small laundry basket, a round laundry basket, that's about the size of one bushel of corn. So you had a lot of those. So thank you all so much for those great questions today. You really kept Mitch thinking there. But I just want to say thank you, Mitch, for taking time out of your busy planting schedule. I know, unfortunately, the weather didn't cooperate with us today, but you are going to be hopefully out in the fields planting first thing tomorrow morning if the weather is good for you. But agriculture is the #1 industry in our state in Nebraska, and it plays a big role in our everyday lives. So farmers have to use that science, engineering, math, and technology each day on their farms to help provide and produce the best quality of corn so that we have food to eat, and there's food for our animals to eat and to even fuel our cars and vehicles. So thank you all very much for joining us on our virtual field trip, and I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon.
Say thank you. Thank you.
Say thank you.
Thank you.